We have the official rosters for the McDonald's All-American Team 2024 edition. Shout out to everyone who made this possible. ESPN, because of this embargo agreement, they actually will put out the rosters first because they actually show the game on ESPN. We do not show the game anywhere, but we do have the rosters. Again, this is Monday. You're listening on Tuesday. There's some games that happened Monday night that we are not talking about. So if there's any confusion there, maybe North Carolina lost to Wake Forest. I'm not dodging the conversation. I'm just saying we're having a conversation separately about the McDonald's All-Americans right now. So let's start with the East roster. And let's start with Coach L in Miami because they have Jalil Bethea, who is a guard, 6'4" out of Archbishop Wood High School, Pennsylvania, Miami, Florida, getting a McDonald's All-American. How do you feel about this guy and his fit with Coach L and the Hurricanes?
I feel like dribble scorers, dribble shooters are really, they play an attractive style where if I were, that type of player, I would be, and he seems to liberate guys to play loose. We saw it with Wong, we saw it with Pack. We're seeing, to vary with Poplar, we're seeing varying results this year. But no, that's a good pickup for them. It's Miami kind of continuing. It's nice to see them capitalize on some of their recent success with like scoring some talent, whereas it's been kind of like, developing guys who were sort of in that 4-star range, getting somebody straight out of high school. I'll be fascinated to see how well this works. I'm trying to think, who's their last out of high school McDonald's All-American? It's probably more recent than I'm thinking. I can't think of who it was.
I can't remember who it was either off the top of my head, but I do think when I saw Jalil commit, there was a lot of people talking about however long it had been since Miami had a McDonald's All-American. So congratulations to him and to the Hurricanes. Next up, we got John Bull out of Overtime Elite Academy in Georgia. He is going to play for Chris Beard and Ole Miss. A lot of the guys that are on the McDonald's All-American roster have already committed to teams, so that is, always encouraging to see. So we can kind of forecast a little bit. 7'1" center, like I said, playing with Overtime Elite. What do you like from John Bull? Have you seen him? Is he part of the 70%, Kyle, man?
Yeah, I believe I saw him with Mocan in the summer for a couple summers in a row, actually. Very big, long, lanky guy, lateral mobility kind of coming along, offensive game kind of coming along. But if you think about him like defensively in college, I think he's going to be developed and, going to play for, we talked about Chris Beard. We'll see if Bruce Pearl can, poach him away. Maybe Bruce Pearl, reverses it on him and gives him a call during the season, says, hey, come play for me. I'll get your offensive game going. No, defensively, I think he'll be a presence in the SEC, but it's going to he's more of a longer baking cake in my opinion.
Yeah, next up, two guys going to play for John Shire and the Duke Blue Devils, the number one player in the country that we all know and have talked about a lot, Cooper Flagg out of Montford Academy in Florida, and Isaiah Evans, 6'7" out of North Mech High School, right in Charlotte, North Carolina. So both these guys going to Duke. How do you see them fitting in with John Shire and another big win for the Blue Devils?
Flagg's amazing. We've talked about him, and his offensive game has made huge leaps. I haven't seen Evans as much. I can't speak.
Evans is one of those guys.
Astutely.
Like at first, he was getting offers from a certain caliber of school, then all of a sudden, he gets that 5-star mark and he starts climbing up. And then you're saying, "Oh my God, this guy's going to go to Duke." So I think he's a little bit of a late riser, but I think he's going to be a good fit with the Blue Devils.
Yeah, and like we've said, Flagg has a chance to be the number one pick. I think he's going to be a big presence in this game too. He's a super player.
Yeah, I love to see it. Let's talk about some Kentucky guys. We got Boogie Fland, which is one of the best names in the class here. 6'2" out of Archbishop Stepinac High School in New York City. So shout out to Archbishop and Boogie Fland. Also, they have Jaden Quaintance, 6'9" out of Word of God in North Carolina. If that sounds familiar, that is where John Wall played back in the day before he decided to go play for Kentucky. Also CJ Leslie, who played for NC State. Shout out to Word of God. Yeah. So how do you feel about these two guys wearing Kentucky blue next year?
Boogie Fland, classic, bucket getter. He's a classic kind of Cal Memphis-y kind of guy. He's going to get to the rim. He's a creative, kind of angular scorer. Jaden Quaintance actually looks bigger than 6'9" in person. Big, physical, young kid too. I think actually on the draft rules, he's going to have to, unless they change it, he's going to have to be there for 2 years.
He's not a one and done. Yeah, he's 2026 draft, so he's going to get 2 years in Lexington.
And everything I've heard about him, great kid. So yeah, good pickup. We'll see what else. I guess it's going to kind of come down to if they can get any of these guys to return. But yeah, it's a good talent injection here, and they've got some in the air. I know Edgecombe is a guy that we'll talk about too, who's picking between I think Baylor, Kentucky, and Duke. That's going to be a really interesting one.
So we got 2 Blue Devils on the East team. We got 2 Wildcats on the East team. We also have 2 Tar Heels on the East team. We have Captain Jack, Ian Jackson, coming out of New York City, 6'4". I would say guard. They haven't listed as a forward, but I would say he's a guard. Also, Drake Powell, 6'5", out of Northwood High School in North Carolina. These 2 guys, Captain Jack is a conversation point. Rick Pitino trying to pry his hands into the Captain Jack pool, but right now both these guys are going to go play for North Carolina. What do you like about these 2 5-stars in Chapel Hill?
I would defer to you on those 2. I don't really.
Well, let me just tell you, Ian Jackson is a scorer. He's
well,
a
I've
bucket
seen
getter.
Ian. I've seen Ian. Yeah,
and Drake Powell is one of those guys where he's a local legend. You know, everyone's kind of fallen in love with him. We love when North Carolina guys go to play for North Carolina. So I'm excited to see both of them in North Carolina. If Cadeau does stay for an extra year, now you have Cadeau, these 2 guys coming in. You got a nice little backcourt there, and you got some talent there with some 5-stars in Chapel Hill. Next up, an interesting character that Indiana fans are falling in love with, Liam McNeely, who plays with Cooper Flagg at Montford, 6'7" forward, and a sniper who wears headbands. He is trying to help Indiana next year with their 3-point shooting. What do you see from McNeely next year?
He's a versatile shooter, and the size part of it is really big too. A big movement shooter who has nice physicality. He can get to the basket, has kind of that slow-mo, freeze you up. He's just going to have a lot of different uses for them. Great spacer, that's who doesn't need that in any situation. So he's a great ad, and a guy who gets buckets. You watch some of these games where this is like top talent. We see a lot more of this. Back in the day, we didn't, as like the upper tier of high school games, basically with Montverde. He consistently gets buckets against the best of the best. So this is a guy who is not just a shooter, but he is a great shooter. So just a great scorer all around.
Yeah, last one that is committed on the East team, Tahad Pettiford, 5'10" guard out of Hudson Catholic Regional High School in New Jersey. He's going to go play for Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers. And anytime you see a guy with 5 foot next to his name playing in the McDonald's All-American game, that means he has some game.
Weird if Auburn just keeps getting these guys. You know,
Right.
you got your Cooper, you've got your Holloway. Like they continue to do
They have
this.
a type.
Yeah, they do. Bruce Pearl has a type for sure.
Last 2 names on the East team. These are both uncommitted guys. You got center, 6'9" center, Derek Queen out of Montverde. Obviously playing in Florida, playing with Cooper Flagg, playing with McNeely. So 3 guys from one high school team on the East roster for the McDonald's All-American game. That's good to see. And then last one, Bryson Tucker, a forward, 6'7" out of Bishop O'Connell High School in Virginia. So 2 uncommitted guys on this East team. Do we have any forecasting? Do we think like anyone's, kind of saying that that's our guy? Like Derek Queen feels like there's a bunch of teams that think he's going to end up playing for them next year.
I've seen Tucker a lot more. I've seen Tucker in person a couple times, actually. Dribble pull-up shooter. I mean, he loves mid-range, like a slot operator. Like, he loves to play around the elbows. Very just versatile dribble shooter. He's a guy who just gets buckets. He can get a little blinders on sometimes. But curious to see where he's going to go because he's an instant kind of ad. He's somebody that can create his own shot.
Yeah, I like that. Sharman White, Pace Academy, is going to be the head coach for the East team. Now let's get to the West. First name up, Air Bailey, one of the best names in college basketball for next year. Going to play for Rutgers. Forward, 6'8", coming out of Georgia. He's one of those guys. When he committed, Rutgers fans, Steve Peichel, they were going crazy because they thought that means they could convince Dylan Harper, who we will talk about here as well, 6'5" guard, obviously the son of Ron Harper, going to go play for Rutgers as well. So Rutgers gets 2 guys here, 2 5-stars, and 2 McDonald's All-Americans. What do you like out of both these guys, and what do you expect to see in this game?
We've talked about these guys in the past, I think, but this it's got to be the best Rutgers recruiting class of all time, right? I mean, I'm trying to think of another time, like Seton Hall back in the day. It was kind of weird how like they had a spike. I think it was like in 2000 or 2001, that crazy recruiting class that they had. Let's just put a good team around them and let's see if you can keep them happy. Obviously, maybe beyond a year, but. Would be tough in this situation, but yeah, both of these guys can play. Rutgers basketball. It's on the uptick for sure.
Yeah, it's a great state for college basketball. New Jersey does not get discussed enough when you talk about talent, basketball talent. So it's cool to see those guys going to play for Rutgers. Next up, we got Flory Badunga, a center, 6'9", out of Kokomo High School in Indiana. He's going to go play for Kansas next year and play for Bill Self. If you don't know anything about Kokomo High School, these people are diehard college basketball and basketball fans in general, and I know Flory's going to be a really good player just for the fact that he's coming from Kokomo because they're tough. What do you expect to see from him at Kansas next year?
One of the fastest athletes off the floor for his size that I've seen in a while. He is just explosive, has that, like, he just volleyballs shots. So he's going to be a fun defensive tool for Self to use. Like, he's just a weak side mop up kind of guy, like almost Nerlens-y, like the way he can swoop in and erase plays. So yeah, he is very fun to watch. He's going to have some viral moments for Kansas next year.
Some major moments for Kansas. I'm excited to see him there. Next up, we got Carter Bryant, a forward, 6'8", out of Sentinel High School in California, and he's going to go play for Tommy Lloyd in Arizona. Kind of the typical 3-and-D guy there for Arizona.
Definitely. I mean, it's not somebody I've seen as much as some of these other guys, but he's definitely going to fit in with Arizona for sure.
Well, let's talk about some prolific prep guys, because there's 3 guys on the West team. First up, we have Zoom Diallo, again, playing in Napa for prolific prep. He's going to go play for Washington next year, and Mike Hopkins, 6'3" point guard, got a lot of game. I've seen a few prolific prep games. What do you like from Zoom? Because it's a great name.
He's one of those guys that's going to interface immediately with the college game. He can play. I've seen him in person a couple times. Just a fast, great athlete. He's going to be ready to roll. I think just a plug and play type guy. Prolific players tend to be that. They do a good job developing players and getting them ready for college basketball. And Washington got a good one for sure.
Yeah, the next 2 prolific guys: Darian Reed, forward, 6'7", going to Alabama, and also his teammate Aiden Sherrill, 6'11", playing at prolific prep, and is going to go play for Nate Oates in Alabama. How do you like that duo going down to Tuscaloosa?
Reed is one of my favorite players in the class. I just think he's going to be, with the way that Nate Oates likes to play, you put a toolsy sort of guy who does a lot of. Reed is very steady too, just kind of a quiet, steady presence out there. Can guard multiple positions, hit an open 3 here and there. Just makes connective plays. He's the kind of guy that kind of powers. I know we talk about like just the sheer 3-point shooting with Alabama, but with Reed, he's the kind of like centerpiece that kind of makes it all work. And he's good both ways.
Yeah, I like both those guys, and I think Nate Oates is really winning with those 2 guys coming there. Next up, we got VJ Edgecombe, who is 6'4". He is from Long Island Lutheran High School in New York, and he is going to go play for Scott Drew and Baylor. His recruitment, a lot of people thought at one time he was a Duke guy, ends up going to Baylor. What are your thoughts on his game, and what do you expect to see next year?
Oh, I was still clearly didn't get an update on who he picked. I missed the announcement on that one because I was talking about where he was picking up. Well, like you said, there was shifting that I'd kind of heard murmuring behind the scenes that there was shifting going on. I'd heard that it actually was going Kentucky's direction, but Baylor is going to be a great situation. They're just a factory for these types of guys that go and are going to play like a pick and roll heavy style. Scott Drew enables his ball handlers, and it's the hard to argue with the track record that Baylor's had.
It's kind of funny how like all these teams have types. The Keontae George type is what VJ Edgecombe basically is. So shout out to him. Donovan Freeman is the next name, 6'7". He's got game. He's at IMG Academy, and he's going to go play for Red Autry and Syracuse. So you got the orange here with the McDonald's All-American. What do you like about Freeman? Have you seen him play much?
No, I'm not as familiar with Freeman, but interesting to see Syracuse get back in the game here with the McDonald All-American thing.
Yeah. I'm sure Jim Boeheim loves to see it. So we here at this program love to see it. Next up, we got Richard Johnson, guard, 6'6", out of Link Academy in Missouri, and he is going to go play for Rodney Terry in Texas. I like a 6'6" guard. That's encouraging signs. I don't know how much you've seen of Richard Johnson.
Yeah, if Rodney's still there, we'll see. I know Texas fans are a little grumpy about it, some of the stuff that's been going on with him. But yeah, big versatile guard, Richard Johnson. Link has been just a really, really fun high school team to watch this year. So yeah, he's somebody that should make an immediate impact for them.
Last player on the West team that is committed to a program, Trent Perry, guard, 6'4", at Harvard Westlake out here in California. I have seen him play in person a few times. He is one of Bill Simmons' favorites out there in the high school basketball world. High school basketball in California, by the way, it is a topic of conversation. I feel like people talk about high school more than they talk about college basketball out here. But he's going to go play for USC and play for Andy Enfield. What have you seen from Trent Perry, and what do you like about his game?
Do you think it's because the guys is it an issue of guys staying in the area, or like why do you think the high school is imbalanced to the college thing? What's up with that?
I don't know, but it is very fascinating. If you talk to any just random guy on the street in LA, they'll tell you about Notre Dame, they'll tell you about Sierra Canyon, they'll tell you about Harvard Westlake, they'll tell you about Crossroads. But if you ask them about UCLA, they're like, I don't know. What are they up to?
It used to be like Mater Dei and like Artesia, like, back in the day. That
right.
was so.
Well, these are like I don't know what happened, like the factory of second generation stars. You know what I mean? I shout out Kenyon Martin.
True.
I feel like KJ Martin at Sierra Canyon was kind of like the breaker of this new culture that we have with high school basketball actually in the city of Los Angeles. And Notre Dame right now, I mean, you look at Mercy Miller, who is the son of Master P. He's an incredible talent. He's one of their best players. And, you got Scottie Pippen's son, who's the best player on Sierra Canyon, right? So there's like all these like known entities and then their kids. And then their kids are actually good. And then obviously you got Bryce James at Sierra Canyon. Bronny was there before. So a lot of conversations in LA about high school basketball. Trent Perry will be a conversation point. Last name on the West, and he's uncommitted. He's playing at Overtime Elite Academy. Carter Knox is a guard, 6'6". And I've heard rumblings that Kentucky is a team that is involved here. Louisville is also another team that is involved. How do you feel about Carter Knox?
I mean, obviously you've got the connection there with Kevin. Running it back, you got to think like, well, how did he feel about that experience? Kenny Payne was a guy that I know spent a lot of time with that family, recruited Kevin, was a big part of it. Running it back, you got to, Kenny's not going to be there. I mean, you got to assume so. That's a big leg up. I'd assume that Kentucky has an advantage there. Not quite as big as his brother. Kevin should have stayed in school. That's another topic for another time. But I just, that was one that I don't think he needed to go. Carter, we'll see if he has a different experience. But yeah, he's a good player, man. Good, yeah. Not quite as big, but he's a good player.
Yeah, I like his game. And I like that he's kind of battling it out between Louisville and Kentucky. We love a little rivalry there. We saw it with DJ Wagner before. So there you have it. The 2024 McDonald's All-American game roster. Shout out to all those guys that made the roster. Congratulations. The women's roster is also out. Congratulations to everybody that made it there. We don't have as much insight on that roster as we would like, so we're going to keep it to the men's roster. But I appreciate
we had exemplary knowledge of this roster, as you can tell.
Yeah, as you can tell. We're really just ripping through it with our notes. Shout out to everybody that made this game. It is always a fun game. We always get great history. I will never forget where I was when I watched J.R. Smith go off in the McDonald's All-American game, and then after the game decide he was going to go straight to the NBA. Those are great times, and shout out to everybody that's a part of the McDonald's All-American game that reached out to us, OSP, friends of the program, a handshake deal. We love to see it, and hopefully we didn't mess up the embargo. So that is that.